Hello and welcome back to day 5 of here, the Single Malt Reviews Taste-a-thon through the Secret Spirits Whiskey Advent calendar. It's Dave's turn in the hot seat once again for this 5th dram. Mingus has joined us, the Single Malt Reviews official spirit animal. How dreadfully unlucky. He will be good or he will be gone. If there's going to be any camera or microphone pushing over today. So, again, if you want to know the rules of the tasting exercise that we are undertaking, please check the first episode. Otherwise, let's move things along. Oh, now, where are they keeping number 5?
I believe it was top left corner. Or
so it is. I'm glad the person with the blindfold on can remember.
Took a quick look before we started.
Oh.
As always, I will try to guess what I am tasting, whether it's a single malt, blended malt, or other. Roughly which region of Scotland it hails from, and if my whiskey spidey senses are especially sharp, I'll have a crack at guessing which distillery it may even be from. So far, results have not been great. There are such surprising, idiosyncratic and downright unique drams we've had so far that my hopes of being precise are not super high.
I'm really having to work this one out. You know the, if I said, do you remember the rhinoceros scene from Ace Ventura 2, Pet Detective? Would that ring any bells?
Would it shock the internet if I mentioned I've never seen an Ace Ventura movie?
Here it comes.
Most of Jim Carrey's 1990s canon is outside of my cinematic purview.
Someone, and you know who you are, is now having an unfortunate mental picture.
I believe I've seen the animated GIFs.
Good. Okay, right. Well, it's a similar situation trying to get those bottles out.
They are snugly and securely packed.
Securely packed. We can say that much. So I shall reveal it to myself. Right. This will be interesting. This will be.
And on the plus side, that gives nothing away, because if there's one thing we can say about what we've tried so far, it has uniformly been interesting.
I would have said this is not unstraightforward right up until one particular thing I'm noticing, and that's when it becomes a bit of a space oddity. But we'll see how Dave goes, and the rest of you, because this is going within the tankard of obfuscation, to be revealed after Dave's 2-minute power taste begins, which is right now. So one thing is going to be immediately evident.
There is Isla Peat happening.
There sure is.
I'm going to lock region in on Isla straight away.
Ooh, all right then.
I think this is not super old. Well, why am I going straight to the age? I should be focusing on distilleries or other characters.
Well, you've gone region, and by doing so, you've also locked in malt, because they surely don't bother producing grain in Ireland. That would be an expensive exercise. Well, you're doing well. You're only on 30 seconds.
Yeah, it is. Sorry. There is... It is a medium oily peaty smoke. It's maritime, there's soot, there's a bit of grease.
Yeah, I agree. Cask types, what are we thinking?
We'll have to have a bit of a sip and find out. Curious. I'm going to need a little splash of water in there, based on your judgment, based on the strength. This is, I believe, quite strong. Quantity. I'm going to think probably 50% plus.
Ooh, all right then.
There is a very strong oaky finish there, so it's not the vanilla-y bourbon cask oak. It is more of like a fresh oak, sort of like a new oak flavour, which suggests it could be either, like there's some new oak casks here, or else some very old sherry casks, perhaps.
There's a lot of, whatever flavours there may be, there's a lot of them, so I would agree with you with the, I didn't even bother reading that bit of the bottle, but yes, it rings to me like first fill.
Oh, wow.
We're coming up near 10 seconds.
Okay. I'm thinking, this is an older Kilhoman, possibly 9 years plus.
Oh, that's a bold choice. Hang on,
is.
Let me stop here. So what are we going with?
Oh, let's remove the hat.
Kilhoman, are we thinking?
It's a close call. It could be any of a number of Islay distilleries.
Kilhoman. Well, it's malt whiskey from Islay, from Kilhoman, and what we've got is
10
one
years old.
of the above.
It's Lishig.
Yeah, Lishig. diddles us again. Oh no, actually it was Talisker that got us last time with that Isla fakery last year. Ran me afoul of an Isla guess. This is
a bourbon cask, so it's wrong on that front. Le Chig. Okay, that is, one of my favourite whiskies of the last few years was the signatory 9-year-old bourbon cask Le Chig, which came from 2 barrels only. This is quite similar to it, except bottled down to, again, 46.1%, exactly the same as yesterday's dram.
Yeah, interesting.
I'm colour me perplexed. So, Le Chig, that is, a good source of that island peat. It is a very Isla flavour, but clearly...
Le Chig is difficult, and this one is super difficult, and I'll explain why. Le Chig is the peated, and it's heavily peated expression that comes out of Tobermory Distillery, which is the sole distillery on the Isle of Mull, I think representing about 50% of the Isle of Mull's exports. That and some rather good Highland cheese comes out of it, but otherwise that's kind of all you got over there on Mull.
I guess I could have been more cautious by guessing islands as a region, but I just the peat just spoke to me of islands straight away. So once again,
for a first fill bourbon, and this one I will hold up because that's a shockingly dark.
It is.
This is there is no way that this is anything but first fill bourbon, and it's
the 9-year-old Le Chig, that signature offer. I believe that was first fill casks, and that was much more pale than this.
This one is, you'd have to call these bourbon casks not even relatively, radically active. This is
lacking that uniquely lemony citrus note you usually get from young bourbon cask peated whiskey.
What I typically get from Le Chig, and it's a very slim difference from what you get on Isla, is smoky bacon.
Right.
But that is a spirit-driven note, and it dissipates as the whiskey ages. The reason I associate the smoky bacon so exactly with Le Chig is that I've almost universally got it under 10 years old. It's a whiskey that practically never sees the light of day in its teenage years, certainly not older than that. Very, very hard to get. But it does appear in quite a lot of independent bottlings as a young dram, because it performs very, very well as a young dram. Tobermory, not quite so much. I think Tobermory needs at least 10 years to get good. But Le Chig, that's pretty much ready to go right out the gate. But to see one so oak driven as this one,
it had real taste of fresh hewn oak, which to me speaks of either virgin oak casks,
super oak driven,
extremely old sherry casks which have had whiskey sitting in for a very long time,
and comparatively quite old at a mere 10 years old, because this is whiskey you typically see between 6 and 8 most days of the week. This makes it a very, very odd Le Chig, a very, very cask-driven Le Chig.
But no, it's quite young, and it's also, I assume, been watered down for bottling at this strength. But it's a very dark colour, though. You don't normally get a colour that rich, that bright and dark.
You get one in every 100 bourbon barrels or less might give you that. Right. And this is just my contact with independently bottled ones. It's astonishingly rare, and it usually denotes a exceptionally cask-driven whiskey, very, very rich whiskey, which is what this is. I think, was this coming out of a different barrel, it would be way clearer as to what it was, because there's incredibly rich, syrupy sweetness that we're getting, because this is...
I would have expected vibrant citrus and lemonade notes.
You could drizzle this over ice cream. It is so rich, honey, vanilla, caramel. It's a very confected kind of nose, and it's wonderful in its own way, but it's quite atypical to what you normally get out of Le Chig, which is a dry, smoky, bacony, savoury kind of a whiskey.
I was expecting this to be Kilo and possibly a peated Bunnahabhain even, and most likely from a sherry cask.
Had I had the blindfold, I wouldn't have guessed Le Chig either. I would have pegged this for a very, very rare sherry matured Isla or Talisker, much the way that you went Isla. But I would have, the real mistake I would have made would be on the wood type, because this is so active, so bourbon, such juicy, spongy bourbon wood they've got out of this, that it's throwing my senses into the sherry spectrum on my tasting mass spectrometer, and I would have been completely wrong. So, odd in a few ways. Not odd that there's a Le Chig in here, because it's a very, very common independently bottled whiskey. It's quite easy to get hold of. and it doesn't cost you the earth like Isla does. It doesn't
But it's
have
also
that
niche
fame
enough
factor.
to throw a bit of a curveball into proceedings, as clearly it's done here.
And it does have its own bottling.
Yep.
You don't have to scrape around independent bottles to find it. You will find, I forget exactly how old it is. I think it might be either 8 or 10 years. Don't quote me. But yeah, you will find it. You might just have to look a little bit further than not. But if you can find Tobermory, it won't be far away because they come from the same place. They just have a slightly different name. So that was, goodness, what was it? Day 5?
Do you believe so?
Day 5. Coming back, day 6, 24 hours time. Be back here, same batch time, same batch channel. We will be right here, rearing to go. Catch you then.